I think it goes back to that indoctrination, and it goes back also, we are very, very trained from a very young age to outsource our health, our education, our connection with God. That gets outsourced. Everything is, we outsource everything, and we put it in the hands of people who benefit from us not being in a good way. Our education system. What are they teaching kids in schools these days? We're so busy, we can't homeschool, we can't educate our kids at home, most of us can't, so we have to put them into a system, and we have to trust that they're giving our kids the right information, and we know they're not. We know they're just creating more taxpayers and more worker bees. We know they're not actually giving them the right information. No one's going to teach you how to leave the system. It's not going to happen. So we have to take all of these things into our own hands, but then we get scared because we've been led to believe that we're not capable.
Hey, welcome back to the Homestead HQ, where we talk about homesteading and preparedness. This is Shelly.
I'm Jason, and hey guys, tonight we've got Callie Blackwell with us. She's an amazing person, has an amazing story. She's going to be speaking at our festival on October 26th and 27th in Bowling Green, Kentucky. The website is KentuckySustainableLiving.com. I'm going to hit a couple things because I know you're not here to hear about our sponsors. You're here to hear Callie and the amazing stuff she's done in her lifetime so far. But first, run to VacMasterFresh.com. VacMaster is one of the main sponsors that makes this show happen. They've got a kickoff to fall sale going on right now. They've got 30% off their stainless steel tables, 20% off all their chamber sealers, and 15% off their bags and accessories. Their knife rolls, their butcher knives, all that is on sale. Use the code Homestead to save 15% extra on top of the sale prices. And also Signature Solar. Go to signaturesolar.com. Use the code Homestead. That's going to save you some money on all your solar and your accessories. It helps us out. They're a sponsor for our festival. And now, what you've been waiting for, Callie, thanks for coming on and telling us all your story, or most of your story, because if we tell it all, then people won't show up in Bowling Green to hear it in person. So tell us a little bit. Tell us, start off, who are you, kind of what you've done. And after this, honestly, people are going to be, the first time I heard your story, I was like, holy crap. I was like, that's an amazing story.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I don't know how somebody went through that. The first time I heard it was with Tag, and literally I'm working and I've got tears in my eyes on some of this. I'm like, I can't imagine going through this. And kids are special to me. I love kids, and it was like somebody was just ripping my guts hearing some of this stuff.
Yeah, it was a journey for sure. My name's Callie. I'm from the UK, and I now live in beautiful Kansas. I've managed to find myself some land, and I'm building a homestead, and I will get into that in a moment because everything kind of ties in for me. So basically, kind of in a nutshell, in 2010, my then 10-year-old child was diagnosed with leukemia. And then whilst on active chemotherapy, around 18 months later, he was diagnosed again with a secondary cancer called Langerhans cell sarcoma. Now, this made him the only person in the entire world to have these two cancers together. And so they had no idea what to do with him. They had no protocol. They had never seen this before. And so they decided that, they kind of conversed with doctors and oncologists all over the world, and they came to the conclusion that they were going to give him a bone marrow transplant, because that was the only way that they decided that either cancer wasn't going to come back, because both cancers came from his bone marrow. So if they swapped it out for somebody else's, it couldn't come back. And so my son actually ended up having then adult doses of chemotherapy. And then he went on to have his bone marrow transplant. He ended up having 4 bone marrow transplants in 10 months. And his entire treatment lasted 4 years. He had 22 rounds of total body irradiation, 8 rounds of targeted on his throat, all the adult chemotherapy for those 4 years. He spent 2 years in isolation, in pure isolation, from the age of 12 to 14. And 10 days after his 14th birthday, they said that his 4th and final transplant had failed. And there was other things going on. He had infections. He was riddled with infections. His hand was necrotic. They ended up doing what they call the neurectomy, where they severed his nerve so he couldn't actually feel his hand dying anymore, but his hand was dying underneath. These infections were just ravaging him, and they said that his fourth and final transplant hadn't worked, and that if nobody had engrafted after 50 days, which means that you're making your own blood products, then it's not going to work. And this was on day 47. And so, yeah, 11 days after his 14th birthday, they sent us to a children's hospice, and he was given 3 days to live. I actually said to the doctors, well, when I take him off this, I called it a conscious life support machine, because he was awake and he was aware and he was making all these decisions with us. He was 14 now at this point. And I said, when we take him off, how long we talking? They said 3 days, a week at most, if you're lucky. When do you want to go? So I went back into the room where my son was, and he said, okay, how long have I got? And I said, they said 3 days, a week at most. And he said, okay, let's go. Let's get it over and done with. Let's just go. So we went to the children's hospice, and I planned his funeral with him. I planned everything with him. And my son has an incredible sense of humor. And he decided that his funeral was going to be fancy dress. And if anybody wants to actually Google this, you can go on YouTube and you can look up Russell Howard Cancer Boy, and you will find a skit of my son. And it's an incredible story. But yes, he decided that everybody was going to come in fancy dress. And kind of previously before this, if I backtrack ever so slightly, when his hand was dying and the pain he was in, he was on fentanyl, morphine, he was on everything. He couldn't have any more painkillers. And I had started to I turned to the Google gods and I said, okay, well, what else can we use for pain? And it came back that there was a drug called Bedrocan, which was available in Europe but not available in the UK. And the main component of that was cannabis, marijuana, as we call it in this country, but cannabis. And so I actually said to the team, I said, listen, I found this drug. All you have to do is write the prescription. I'll drive the 6 hours to Amsterdam and I'll go and get it. And they said, no, we can't. It's not licensed for children. Chemotherapy is not licensed for children either, but that doesn't stop them. And so I took matters into my own hands, and I found somebody and I bought some cannabis off the street, and I made a tincture and I put it in a vape pen for him, and it wasn't strong enough. It didn't do anything. It didn't work. And so a couple of months later, we're now in the hospice, and my son's last dying wish, and he had a do not resuscitate, he had a DNR over his head. It was palliative care now. Everything else had been taken away. And his last dying wish was, he said, Mum, I don't want to die on morphine. He said, they've taken everything else from me. They're not having my death. I want to experience the transition. Please don't let them numb me. So they start giving extra morphine because he's getting agitated at the end of his life. And we're now around about day 60 after his last transplant. So we kind of, 13 days in the hospice, and he's still alive. And I start questioning the team and saying, have we made the right decision here? Should we pull him out? Like, what's going on? I said, I need another bone marrow aspirate, which is where they take a very large needle like this, and it's really thick, and they push it into the ball joint of the hip because that's where they can get the most amount of bone marrow from. And they did that test, and they came back to me on day 60 and said, day 69, there's nothing in there. To which I was actually relieved, as was my son, because my son said, well, if there was anything in there, they'd start prodding and poking me again, and it'd be back into hospital and tests, and I'm done with that. I'm done. So he said, I'm glad there's nothing in there. But his anxiety towards his end of life was, he wasn't sleeping. He was waking up, crying in the middle of the night. And to try and console him, the doctors were giving him morphine. Well, he didn't want that. So on day 70, I remember sitting there and I heard, put the cannabis in his mouth. just put it in his mouth. And so I looked at the jar that I had of this like syrupy tincture stuff, and I drew up a syringe and I put it in his mouth. And within moments, I saw the relief. I watched like a body scanner went over him. I saw him sit back in his bed and take a deep breath, and he relaxed and he was chill. And he said, I'm good. And no more morphine, no more sleeping tablets, no more antiemetics, which is anti-sickness, no more drugs. That was it. They all went away, and I just kept giving the cannabis. And for the next 5 days, I just kept giving him the cannabis. And on day 75, one of his bandages came off. Now, bearing in mind, he looked like Mickey Mouse at this point because of the necrosis. They debrided, they'd taken a bunch of flesh off the fingers. I don't want to be too gruesome, but his hands were disgusting. And they said, do not take those bandages off under any uncertain terms. And so when the bandage came off and I looked at his finger and his finger was healed, they started panicking and running around and saying, hang on, we need to do a blood test. And I said, 5 days ago, it wasn't in his blood. Like it wasn't in his bone marrow. It's not going to be in his blood. They did a blood test, and lo and behold, his blood count was there. It had come up. His bone marrow had kicked in at day 75. They shredded the do not resuscitate. He was no longer dying. The doctors, obviously I couldn't tell them because cannabis is highly illegal in the UK. I couldn't tell them a thing. And and the rest is kind of history in that sense. But there is a huge amount that went on within that story that I will definitely go into way more detail when I come to the event. And I'm going to be I wrote a book about it. So
I have that book. I got it from you in Kansas. I've started reading it. It's really, really good.
I'm sorry, I want that cry. I'm going to bring a load with me, and I'll definitely gift you one, Jason, for sure. So I'll be bringing these as well. And, you know, really the last bit really is about cannabis. The rest of it is about understanding the medical system. And this is where really my son was the catalyst for what I now do and what I've done for the last 10 years. So my son is 25 this year, and he's been on cannabis every single day. He's healed. His recovery has been absolutely incredible. The doctors can't understand how he's healing so well. They're expecting him to have the late term effects of chemotherapy and radiotherapy, bearing in mind what they pumped into him. And it's not happening. You know, his results are kind of getting better each year, apart from his heart. They've kind of messed his heart up, but his results are getting better, and they don't understand it. And every time he says, because I'm taking cannabis, it's healing me. It's a restorative plant. So for the last 10 years, I wrote my book because I knew that I had to get it all out in my words before I went to the newspapers or anything, because they would twist everything, because they do. They like to sensationalize and twist and manipulate.
No, they wouldn't do that.
I had enough experience with them, just because my son was the only one in the world, I had enough experience with them to know that I couldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. And I was like, this is my words in black and white. You can't twist this. And so I went on national TV. I told the world what I did. I walked out of the TV studio like this, half expecting the police to be outside arresting me. Never happened. It didn't come. And then I became one of the most well-known cannabis activists in the UK. I've spoken at the UN in Geneva. I've spoken at parliaments across Europe, in the UK. I was arrested outside Parliament dressed as a suffragette because I was protesting the ridiculous cannabis laws. That made for some really good pictures, actually. So, I've tried to change legislation, and I realized that it was absolutely pointless, because big pharma are going to do what big pharma are going to do, and little old me is not going to change anything. But what I can do is I can help people that are in the trenches. I can help those people that come to me who've been sent home to die, and they find me, they look for me on the internet, or they look for alternatives. Now they're desperate. They find me, and I'm willing to help them, and I do what I can, and I have done for 10 years. I've seen stage 4 pancreatic cancer go into remission. I've seen bowel cancer, brain cancers, you name it, I've seen it go into remission. Sadly, I have seen a lot of people not make it too, because when you have gone through the system and you've been cut, burnt, and poisoned beyond recognition, expecting a plant to perform a miracle is, I mean, it's doable because I've seen it with my own son, but we have to be realistic, you know. But what I will say is that every single person that's come to me has been helped in some way. Either their life has been prolonged, they have a much better quality of life and a much better quality death, and their suffering is eased, you know. And that, I think, is what most of, I mean, it's what I want. I want to be here for as long as possible, for as pleasant as possible. And cannabis, in my experience, can definitely do that for people. And so that's what I do now. And I help people. I help people mainly in the UK, but I'm helping more people in this country too. Obviously, I'm risking certain things, but for me, I follow God's laws. I don't follow man's laws, because man's laws are made up by men who profit from our sickness. And when a law is unjust, we have a moral obligation to break it. So I do what I can, you know. And I have a legal CBD brand in the UK called The Activist. And I'm about to have some mushrooms too. And I work with lots of other different healing modalities. I work with lots of different plants. This cannabis was the gateway drug into lots of other plants for me, because beforehand I definitely wasn't. I definitely wasn't into my plants, or, you know, I didn't have a clue. But cannabis was the thing that opened the door for me to now start looking into mushrooms, even like reishi and lion's mane and turkey tail and chaga and things like this, and as well as psychedelic mushrooms, because they also have their own incredible healing powers. And I tend now to look at, well, what has man banned? I'll look at that because if they banned it, there's a reason they banned it. And I like to look into all that, and I learned so much. And I've bought this 20 acres. I was actually picking all the mullein. I've made mullein tinctures, and I'm going to be growing my own herb gardens. And I really want to kind of embrace the herbal, not just the illegal ones, but all of them, because God gave us every single plant, and every single plant has a benefit, has a reason. We just have forgotten over the last however many years that we've been pushed into allopathic medicine by the Rockefellers in the 1900s, when they banned, they got the Flexner report. They paid Flexner in 1910, and they reported that all these herbal medicines, the alternatives, when they are the originals, they shouldn't be used. They're bad. And then they brought in their petrochemicals, and now, anybody that knows the history of the Rockefellers, they came to America and said, listen, we're going to give you the best doctors in the world. We'll pay for all your doctors. We'll create these huge schools for doctors, but you have to follow our curriculum. Yeah. And from there on in, the doctors, unfortunately, have been pushed to allopathic. They don't look outside the box. There is actually, I'm not sure of the legislation in this country, but in the UK, there is the Cancer Act of 1939 that states you cannot talk about anything else healing cancer other than the government-led chemotherapy, cut, burn, and poison. That's all we're allowed to do. So I think there's a movement. We're coming back to nature, and this is how it kind of ties in with, the prepper movement and the homesteading movement, is that one day your doctor's going to be gone. What are you going to do? You need to learn now what you can grow and replicate. And because if you can grow it, you can keep producing it. You don't need to rely on your doctor. Right. And there is a plant for every ailment. You just got to find it and work out how to use it, grow it, store it, process it, and find out what you can grow so that you can really, truly take care of yourself, and you don't need to rely on that system that literally just profits from you being sick. So
Callie, does your son still live in the UK?
Yes, he does, yeah.
So how is he, you said that the cannabis is still highly legal in the UK. How is he able to get what he needs?
He has to break the law. Unfortunately, he has to break the law, and he has done for 10 years. I have very good connections in the UK, and, I hook him up with the right people who get him the very good, clean medicine. But unfortunately, that's something that he faces. And it's a very real fear of mine as well, that he, his doctors know, it's on his medical records, so they know what he's doing. And my thing.
Well, and you speaking out about this, doesn't it kind of put him in danger as well? I mean,
absolutely. But writing a book about it.
right.
And that's something that he's very well understanding of that as well, that it's bigger than us. It's bigger than us, and God didn't give me this to sit on, and it didn't put him in that position for him to keep quiet about it either. God put us on this path for a very powerful reason. And there's almost part of me that feels that, and I don't want to jinx it, but there's part of me that feels that he's protected. And also the police really don't want to arrest the boy in 7 billion. And they wouldn't want that, because people would kick up a stink, if they arrested him, because he's got such a high profile story, that he can kind of rest on that. But he keeps very quiet about things. He doesn't, he doesn't grow it, produce it himself and stuff like that. So he's really only in possession. But yeah, every time I come on and talk about it, I'm putting both of us at risk, absolutely. But I know that people can be helped. And I know that me sharing my story has helped thousands of people. And that to me is worth it, because if it can just help one person, then it's very much worth me risking myself, to help others. Because if I don't, if I kept this to myself, I couldn't have lived with myself, because I knew that, I knew that it helped my son, and so it would help other people. And I almost made a promise as well. When my son was given the 3 days, I left the hospital and I went outside, and I stood outside, and I looked up and I said, listen, if you're there and you can hear me and you're real, please, like, if you let my son live, I will spend the rest of my life helping people. I promise. That's my promise to you. And he stuck by his side of the deal. So I have to stick to my side of the deal. And it's not a deal I'm going to break, you know. So I work for him. I don't work for the man. I work for the man.
and that's
go ahead.
Well, one of the things that stuck out to me earlier on when you said, you know, he went through the adult version of the radiation and chemo. It's like that they turned a blind eye to him being a kid for that. But then, you know, it's not legal for kids to have the cannabis with that, but they won't turn a blind eye to that. That's just big pharma saying, hey, we're going to stick it to you, and we're going to play by our rules and not nature's rules and God's rules on that. It's just, I honestly think that there's a cure for cancer. You know, whether it be herbal remedies or pharmaceutical stuff, there's a cure for cancer, but there's no money in it. If they can keep you constantly sick, I mean, it's like you don't eat your milk cow. You keep the milk cow and milk her, you're getting a lot more. But as soon as you kill that milk cow, you know, the milk's gone. Yeah. So they're just milking people out and keeping people constantly sick all the time, just to where we can throw them this pill and, you know, take this pill for this. And the American people, and a lot of people are just lazy. They would rather take the pill than put in the work to do something. You know, I want to lose weight. Well, you can get up off your butt and stop watching Netflix and stop eating at McDonald's and run, or you can take this pill and I still get to watch Netflix and still get to eat McDonald's every day, but I want to lose weight. It's the laziness of society nowadays.
Yeah, people want a pill for an ill, and they want to be able to continue their detrimental lifestyle. They just don't want to feel it. They just don't want to experience what that detrimental lifestyle feels like. And I mean, we've been heavily indoctrinated, you know, and it's the same in the UK. Everybody looks for a quick fix. That's why plastic surgery is so huge. And, you know, everybody's looking for that quick fix, because we're also kind of worked so hard, you know, within the system that we don't have time to come home and we don't want to go to the gym, or we don't, you know, and also like good food is so expensive if you're having to go and buy it. Like it's no coincidence that your McDonald's is 99 cents for a burger and you want to go and get some really good meat and it's going to cost you a lot more money. There's no coincidence. When you really start going down one rabbit hole and you start learning and you see how Big Pharma and the food industries are in bed together. Tobacco and big food are in bed together. So tobacco industries realized they made tobacco, which is actually a herb. And actually, if you use tobacco in the way it's meant to be used, it can actually be quite beneficial for certain things. However, the way that when they got hold of it and put the formaldehyde in it and the other nasty, horrible chemicals in it, then they made it addictive. And of course, they've done the same with food. Your food is so addictive, especially here in the US. When I first came here and I went into a supermarket, I was absolutely blown away by the food in this country. I think 40% of it is banned, like everywhere else in the world. So it's crazy. It's crazy what they're allowed to get away with. And they're all in it together. You know, one makes you sick and then they go, well, here's a pill. And of course, that pill has a bunch of side effects. And so they give you more pills and more pills and more pills. And now you're rattling by the time you're 40. But that's normal. That's wear and tear. You know, we're led to believe that it's normal to be hurting when you're 40. It's not normal to be hurting when you're 40. There's no reason for it. But we're so poisoned, and we go, you know, pre-birth. Let's go pre-birth. And I remember talking to somebody, she was trying to get pregnant, but she was quite large and she had diabetes and she was on these pills for this, that, and the other. And she said, my doctor's given me metformin and blah, blah, so I can get pregnant. And I said, listen, I don't mean to be rude, but if you take sour milk and rotten eggs and you make a cake, what kind of cake do you think you're getting? She kind of looked at me and I said, get yourself in order first, because you're going to make a sick child. And I'm telling you now, you don't want a sick child. It's no fun. And she kind of looked at me and I said, you have to understand that our health, I take full responsibility for my child's first cancer, not his second, because as you'll read in the book, there's a reason for his second, but I take full responsibility for his first cancer. I was the one that was in really poor health when I got pregnant with him. My first husband, his dad, really poor health. We then made a really gross cake. I had him vaccinated up to the hilt when he was born. I also had a lot of pain medication while I was in labor. You know, we have to think about all of these things. They all have an effect on that child. Because then this is one when people say to me, well, if diet and things like that has anything to do with cancer, how come babies are born with cancer? There's your answer. Parents, sick parents. It's not that we do it on purpose. Absolutely not do we ever do it on purpose. But we have to take into consideration our physical health when we have these children. Then we pump them full of all these vaccines. Then we give them baby Tylenol. And then we send them to, we feed them bad foods and things like this. And then we wonder why they got a toxic overload. Cancer is actually really very simple. It's our bodies can process out absolutely anything, even poison. They can process it out, but it only processes certain things out at a certain speed. So if we put things in quicker than our body can process them out, we get toxic, and then we get a toxic overload, and our bodies can't cope, and then we get sick. And so the answer to cancer really is just to get the body out back into balance. That's all disease is the body's out of balance. And so one of the main things that cannabis actually does on the body is it feeds the endocannabinoid system, which then creates homeostasis, which means balance on a cellular level. And your endocannabinoid system sits above every other system in your body. Your lymphatic, circulatory, respiratory, central nervous, like all of your systems in your body sits above all of them, and it trickles down. And so cannabis to me is a vital nutritional herb that we should all be consuming. Back in the day, we used to feed it to our cattle, so we would then eat it and consume it that way. Today, we are devoid of cannabinoids, unless you're breastfed, because we women actually produce cannabinoids in our breast milk, which is why babies look milk drunk. They're not, they're stoned. they're high. Because cannabinoids, as we know, cannabis gives you the munchies, so when breastfed babies are like, oh my God, my breastfed baby is hungry all the time. It's like, yeah, because it's got the munchies, because you're giving it cannabinoids. So it's coming back for more, because we need to get this baby as fat as possible, as quickly as possible, so it will survive. And so the calmative effects of the cannabinoids in our breast milk give it that milk drunk look and the smile on its face and makes it come back for more. And so a lot of people haven't had cannabinoids since they were breastfed. And so our endocannabinoid system gets very, very depleted. And then that has an effect on the rest of our systems, and we start getting out of balance. And so, really, it's so important that we, stop putting toxins in, and the toxins that are in there, we got to get them out. And there's lots of different ways in which we can do that. And that's one of the most important things when I work with people is we talk about detoxing. Get those toxins out of your body in any way you can. Sweating, peeing, going to the bathroom, lymphatic work, rebounding, jumping around a little trampoline, making sure that your lymphatic system is working. Your lymphatic system is your storage system, and you have more lymphatic fluid than you do blood. And your lymphatic, if you imagine it like little rivers flowing through your body, if you're dehydrated or you're full of sludge, we know what a creek looks like when it's dried out and it's all manky. It can't flow. It's not going to go anywhere. And our lymphatic system is the same, and that's what removes the toxins from our body. So hydration is really important. Movement is really important. Breathing correctly, diaphragmatic breathing is really important. I call them the 4 foundational building blocks of life, and I actually add another one as well, because I talk about food. We have to make sure that our food is really good and clean and organic, no herbicides, pesticides, no as little chemicals as humanly possible. And then our water, preferably drink hydrogen water. I have a Kanga machine, and I recommend those to everybody. I bought my son one recently as well to help him with his clearing out and recovery. And then movement is so important. And then breath. We have to make sure we're breathing properly. And then faith. Faith is the last one. Faith is so incredibly important that we actually believe that we can heal. Because the man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both right. And if you don't have that faith in your God-given ability to heal yourself, then it doesn't matter what you do. It's not going to happen. If you constantly think, I'm sick, I'm not going to, I'm just getting worse, that's what's going to happen. And so if we can get those 5 things kind of solid, then anything we do on top of that is we're going to have a better chance at getting our body back into homeostasis and getting rid of all diseases. Cancer's just like the body screaming. We hear the whispers, we feel the inflammation, we kind of ignore it, or we feel our bodies kind of doing certain things, we kind of ignore it, and then our body screams at us, and then we end up with cancer because we haven't dealt with it before that. But undo it all with some very simple things, honestly. And it blows my mind when doctors go, oh, I don't know why people have cancer. And I'm like, well, I know. As if I know, why doesn't a doctor know? You know, so absolutely, there are cures for cancer. And I very often, I don't use the word cure because it's a lifelong commitment. It's actually just a lifelong commitment of doing the things, giving your body the things that it needs, and you stop giving your body the things that it doesn't need, you're going to be on the right path. I'm going to be quiet now.
I have a question, kind of switching gears a little bit. And I've watched several interviews that you've done with several different people and heard you talk and stuff like that. So correct me if I'm wrong, because I may not get this right. But when you were going through all of the stuff that when you and your son, when you guys were going through all of that, they took his care out of your hands, didn't they?
Yeah, immediately.
Well, that out of, I mean, okay, set aside the whole cancer thing, because that's absolutely terrifying to me. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you were not able to make the decisions that you wanted to make for his care, and they took that away from you, that is terrifying. I mean, to think that, and I don't know if that would be the case in the United States, but I kind of feel like maybe it would be. I mean,
medical kidnapping,
about breaking laws and stuff like that, can you speak a little bit about that and how you dealt with that?
Yeah, sure. It's it does happen in the US as well. Medical kidnapping is what it's kind of known as. And I actually have some friends in the US that had to move state. They went to Colorado because in Colorado and in California they were able to do this for their children without any repercussions. But of course in the UK, very different matter. But yeah, he'd been diagnosed, and it was literally the day that he was diagnosed. The oncologist took me in the room, and she put all these flow charts in front of me, and she put all this information. She said, this is going to be his treatment plan for the next 2.5 years. And I was just like, man, I got on a roller coaster that I never bought a ticket for, and I couldn't get off. And I was just absolutely, and I think they do it on purpose. They absolutely just smash you with all of this information. It's so overwhelming. And then she sat there and she said, what I have to do, she said, by law, I have to give you the side effects. And I said, okay. And she said, I need you to sign this release form so that we can start the treatment. First thing in the morning, he's going to go into surgery, have a line put in, and we're going to start chemotherapy immediately. You need to sign this piece of paper. So she starts going through the side effects of the treatment they're going to give him. And it's like hair loss, kidney failure, liver failure, cancer, death, and I was like, okay, hang on a second. I said, listen, what if, I said, is there something like less tragic than this? I said, this really does seem that you are smashing a walnut with a sledgehammer. I said, is there something else that we can do? And she said, no, this is it. This is your only option. I said, well, what if I say no? What if I say no to this and I won't sign this? And she said, well, Mrs. Blackwell, she said, if you don't sign this piece of paper, Darren will be made a ward of the court and a foster carer will come in. And it's far better that you're sat next to him while he goes through this than someone he doesn't know, because it's going to happen anyway. Sign here. And she slid it across the table at me. And I went, okay, well, what choice do I have? And I mean, back then I really didn't know anything either. So I didn't really... Had I known then what I know now, man, I mean, I wouldn't have even taken him to the hospital. But if it'd been that situation, I'd have been, okay, I'll sign it. And I'd have took him out in the middle of the night and ran away to Spain or something like that. It wouldn't have, but I didn't know anything. I didn't have a clue. I just knew that this seemed like overkill. And that I didn't want to sign anything where the side effect was death, but no, it was made very clear to me that I had no choice. And that is very much something that happens in the UK. I actually have a story of a little boy called Neo, and his mum, they said that he had a brain tumor, and his mum said, I don't think it is. I want to wait for the test to come back, because the tests hadn't even come back to actually prove this was a brain tumor, but they wanted to start radiation immediately. And she said no. And her and her husband were estranged. She took the little boy and she ran away, and she hid in somebody's house that I met a few years later, and he told me the story of it. And she hid, and the husband went on TV, and oh my God, there was a witch hunt out for her. They called her the most despicable mother. Why wouldn't anybody want their child to have life-saving care and all this kind of stuff, and it was horrendous what she went through. Anyway, they caught her. They had her they had a whole warrant out for her and stuff. They caught her. They took the child into hospital. They radiated him. They fried his brain. They gave him brain damage. And then the reports came back that it was a pork worm. It wasn't even a brain tumor. It was a worm in his brain. And all she wanted was to just find out, you know, for a fact what it was. And they won't. They want to do it immediately. They want to do it now. They don't want to give you a chance to breathe or think about it or anything. They get on you. And there's hundreds of stories very similar to that, you know, within the UK every day. And it's frightening, absolutely frightening. And even coming into like using cannabis and stuff like that, I often tell people, I'm like, listen, if you're going to look into cannabis, don't tell your doctor. Don't tell anybody, because it's not worth it when you have a child. I've known of too many stories. I know of one particular one, a guy, we'll call him Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith's daughter had leukemia and she was dying. She really wasn't doing very well. And so he started admitting, this wasn't on my watch, this is before I started doing this. And he started giving her cannabis and she started getting better. And he had confided in one of the nurses. Well, the nurse told on him. The nurse grassed him up. And so they came in and they took the daughter, they put her into care. And in the UK, I don't know about here, but in the UK, they have secret family courts where you're not allowed to have any press. There's no jury. It's a secret family court. They do a lot of adoptions in there and they do a lot of other really shady stuff. And anyway, he got taken into a secret family court where the judge announced that he was not going to get his daughter back because he was a disgusting human being that had given his child an illegal drug. And so the daughter was going to stay into care and she was now actually going to be adopted. And that was it. And the dad, Mr. Smith, said to the judge, this is absolutely despicable. Like, you can't do this. Like, this is my child. And he says, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go to the press and I'm going to tell everybody what you've done. And the judge said to him, well, Mr. Smith, I would like to remind you that you currently have 2 children who are not in the system. And if you want it to stay that way, you will say nothing. And so he said nothing and his daughter died. And that, you know.
I mean, that's just plain out extortion, you know, of what they're doing with that.
It's murder.
Yeah. I mean, it's extortion and murder. And I mean, it's despicable that, you know, the governments get by with this all the time. I've said it for a long time. The medical system's horrendously broken. And it's just, I guess part of it, you know, when she slides you the paper across the table, and it's like, you're going to sign this. I mean, they got you over a barrel. And part of it is they probably want the money too, because no telling how much it costs for, you know, the chemo and the radiation and all that, how much they're charging the insurance companies. It's a stinking racket. So.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, we don't technically pay for our care. It comes out of our taxes, you know. So we pay for it in our wages and things like that when we're working. But because we don't get a bill, we're very disconnected from actually how much these things cost. And so I actually said to the doctors right at the end of Darren, once he survived and everything, I actually said to one of them, I said, can you give me an estimate of how much his treatment has cost? Like how much it cost the taxpayer, how much? And she said about £3.2 million. Jeez. So I was like, God, like, oh my God. And of course, the taxpayers are paying that. And the pharmaceutical industries, the amount of money that they're making off the back of that is, I mean, it's money laundering at that point too. Like they're taking money from the taxpayers and giving it to their mates in big pharma who are charging, and you know, even in this country, it costs something like 0.005 cents to press a pill, but they'll charge you $20 for it, you know? Yeah. And it's the same in the UK. A bottle of tranexamic acid, which is something to stop you bleeding, they charge the NHS £500. That's like $600 for a bottle of, you know, and it probably costs about $5 to make. And so there is
sounds like insulin here. Yeah.
It's crazy. And people, you have to pay it because, like you said, you're over a barrel. What can you do? I don't want to pay that. Okay, we'll die.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take your kid if you don't do this. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's flat out extortion by the government and the medical system.
Yeah, absolutely emotional blackmailing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose right now. It's just like, it's all coming and it's just boom. And it's stuff I've known. And then somebody like you brings it to light. I just don't understand how people still get away with it.
I think it goes back to that indoctrination, and it goes back also, we are very, very trained from a very young age to outsource our health, our education, our connection with God. That gets outsourced. Everything is, we outsource everything, and we put it in the hands of people who benefit from us not being in a good way. Our education system. What are they teaching kids in schools these days? We're so busy, we can't homeschool, we can't educate our kids at home, most of us can't, so we have to put them into a system, and we have to trust that they're giving our kids the right information, and we know they're not. We know they're just creating more taxpayers and more worker bees. We know they're not actually giving them the right information. No one's going to teach you how to leave the system. It's not going to happen. So we have to take all of these things into our own hands, but then we get scared because we've been led to believe that we're not capable. We've been led to believe that we're too dumb, I'm not a teacher, I can't do that. We're led to believe, I'm not a doctor. Thank God I'm not a doctor. But we're led to believe that we're not capable of being sovereign beings and being in charge of our own well-being and our family's well-being. So we outsource it. And that's where the problem is they're outsourcing, because the people who it's outsourced to don't care about you. And then those people that work within those industries. So, I've had a lot of people said to me over the years, well, my doctor's not a bad person. No, your doctor's not a bad person. Your doctor got into being a doctor because they care. However, their good heart was hijacked by a very evil system. Teachers, it's their innate love to teach, and that's what they want to do. They want to teach people. Their good hearts have been hijacked by the corrupted education system. Soldiers, I'm ex-military myself, and soldiers, they have the innate wish to protect. All these guys in the army, they got into that because they want to protect, and their good hearts have been hijacked by the industrial military complex. And it's like, and so they're very clever the way that they have looked at humans, and they go, okay, humans, they want to love, they want to care, they want to protect, they want to teach, they want to do all these beautiful things, which is innately something that's human, and they've hijacked it.
Yeah. And part of it too, people don't want to be responsible for themselves. They want to pass the buck. Well, my doctor told me to do this and it didn't work. They don't want to take responsibility, for themselves and own up to the problems of it. So, yeah. So what, Shelley?
Have you been to SRF?
No, not yet. I haven't been able to make it.
Okay, so there's a guy that comes to SRF, Dr. Ken Berry. Okay. And he has a YouTube channel, and he, pushes the carnivore diet and all that kind of thing. But he wrote a book that I bought and read. It's called Lies My Doctor Told Me. And it's really, all this stuff that you're talking about, it really is, it scratches the surface of all of the things that we've been, like what you're talking about, that we've been indoctrinated into, and if you're curious, if you want to start digging in this, it's like opening up a can of worms that you're not going to close back up.
Oh, it is.
But it might be, definitely start with Callie's book, reading, The Boy in 7 Billion. But check out Ken Berry's book, Lies My Doctor Told Me, because it will kind of get you on that path of understanding how corrupt this whole thing is. It's just absolutely. And you're right. We've been taught, send our kids to school and go get vaccinated and go to the doctor. We've been taught all of that stuff. But ultimately, when the shit hits the fan and everything's falling apart, you're responsible for that.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not, I can't blame somebody else because of, what my weight is or what my medical, I'm responsible for that. I'm responsible for my children's education. If they're not getting what they need, that's on me. I'm responsible for that. And there's so many people out there that do not take responsibility for all of the stuff that's going on in their life. They just want to blame somebody else. And, and they're the same ones that sit around when the stuff is falling apart and they're going like, when's the government going to show up and fix my stuff?
Yeah. Daddy government.
Like, they ain't showing up, dude.
Yeah, that's it. And I've had a lot of people over the years, you know, when I state and I say I'm responsible for my child's first cancer, they go, oh no, you're not. No, don't take that on. We feel guilty enough. And then I go, no, I am, because of my choice. He was a child. He couldn't make the choices. I made the choices to feed him chicken nuggets and McDonald's, and I made the choices to do all that. And I said, but you know, the moment that we take that responsibility, we are empowered, because then we can do something about it. If we keep pushing it away and saying, I didn't do that, that had nothing to do, cancer's just bad luck. No, it's not. It's a result of your bad choices. Sorry, you've made some real crappy choices, and now this is what's happened. But the moment that you understand that and you take that responsibility, then you go, actually, if I caused this, I can make it right too. Because when you outsource and you say it had nothing to do with me, you're also very powerless and say, well, then the treatment and the cure is nothing to do with me either. Doc, save me. And you put your life in someone else's hands. Never going to end well for you. But again, indoctrinated, taught how to do, you know, we can't do it. We're too stupid or whatever it is. But there's more of a movement now where more and more people are homeschooling. They are, they're not going to their doctors even to have, like, when they're pregnant and stuff. I see there's a lot now of a movement of free birthing, and, you know, don't need midwives. Like, we don't need to be, like, birth is not a medical event. Like, we've been doing it for millions of years. Like, we don't need that intervention. Yeah. Yes, things can happen. And, you know, if there's a real emergency, yes. But I will never go see a doctor for my general health. Never will I go. If I'm in a wreck and I need to be fixed and my arm's broke, yes, I'll go and see a doctor. Absolutely. Because, you know, while I can, but I was also a combat medical technician in the British Army. So I also don't really need to go, like, I know how to dress wounds and do, you know, fractures and things like that. But, there's more and more communities now that, I mean, the community we have here in Kansas is absolutely incredible, with the fact that there are doctors here, there are medics here, there are a lot of ex-military, there's herbalists, there's people like me who, you know, everyone brings their own skills. So when the shit hits the fan, there's going to be, every kind of corner is going to be covered, really, you know. And that's, I think, the most important thing for anybody who's looking and really believes that. And I absolutely believe that the shit's going to hit the fan in my lifetime. I know it is. And I think it's really important for anyone that believes that, like, find your community. As Tag said to me, and this is how Tag got me to move to Kansas. The day before we decided we were going to move to Kansas, we were actually looking at North Carolina because I love it there. And he said to me, listen, wherever you go, just make sure you've got community, because you cannot do this on your own. And I went, oh, God damn, like, where am I going to find community like this, Tag? Like, he knew what he was doing. And I said, okay, sold. You win.
I'm telling you, the community in Kansas I've not seen many others like it. It's absolutely amazing out there. You guys got plugged into a good group.
I lucked out hard.
Yeah. It's a great group. So if you're watching this video and any of this stuff resonates with you, you have any kind of questions about any of this, or maybe you're going through this with your kid or your spouse or a family member or whatever, or yourself, and you want to talk to her, she's going to have a booth at our festival. She's going to be speaking there. She's going to be set up. She's going to have that hydrogen water stuff that you can try and talk to her about that. But she'll be there. And if you want to sit down and have a conversation with her, she'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you, because this is what she does now. So, you know, like, first of all, if you're going through something like this, we just pray the Lord's supernatural healing in your life. Mm-hmm. But come see Callie, come check her out and talk to her, and find out the information that you need. Get your questions answered.
Yeah. If you haven't noticed, I can talk, so I don't.
Right.
Again, you know, anybody that I can help, anybody that comes and talks to me, you get to help me fulfill my promise to God, you know, and because that's why I'm here. It's literally my mission. That's why I'm here. I found my purpose throughout all of this, and which is why I would never change any of it. You know, people have said to me, like, oh, I bet you wish it never happened. I'm like, no, you know, like, I'm glad it happened. I wouldn't wish it on my child, the suffering that he went through, but the whole experience, I wouldn't be who I am today. Neither would my children. And I'm very grateful for that. I had no purpose before all of this happened. And now I have a divine purpose here, and I absolutely love helping people. So in any way that I can, I'm more than happy to, and more than happy to talk to you about lots of different things. And yeah, I'll have my hydrogen machine, and we'll be giving out water so people can come and try it. And I'll bring my books, and bring some other things with me as well, so we can definitely have a chat. But more than happy to help anybody.
I tell my girls all the time that the things that happen to them, you can either be a victim or you can be victorious. And you have definitely been victorious.
For sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we absolutely have we don't always have a choice what happens to us, but how we react and how we respond to that.
Exactly.
And there's lessons in everything. Everything is, nothing is to you, everything is for you. And when we're in the midst of it, it can feel a bit like crappy. It really can. But there's a reason for everything. And during my time with Darren, that was something that I really held on to. I found God during my time with him, and it was something that a mantra that I kept was, everything happens for a reason, and everything will work out as it's meant to, always. And even when it was real bad, I was just trying to be grateful for everything that I had. And I came out the other side of it, with a really happy ending. And so yes, and I just I want to make sure that I try and help people avoid the path that my son went down, because it's horrendous. It's horrendous. And the way that the system treats us, it's just, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And so if I can prevent somebody from going down that path, then my job here is done. And I'm happy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Callie, tell everybody where they can find you at.
So if you're on Instagram, I am hope_dealer254. I'm on Facebook as Callie Blackwell. I have a linktree as well, which I could probably send you if you want to put it in the thing. I can, I can send you the website link for that. But really, honestly, Instagram and Facebook, and if you send me a message on there, I will see it and I will respond. I have an automated thing on my Facebook which automatically gives you my phone number and my linktree as well. So yeah, I'm easily found. Well, I say I'm easily found. I'm incredibly shadow banned right now. I am censored beyond belief.
Imagine,
as you can imagine.
This
That's why they need to come see you in person. They need to come meet you at the festival.
For sure. And the thing is, this is going to go out on YouTube. It's going to get heavily shadow banned. It might, but between my channel and Shelly's channel, it might get 100 views. Yeah, which is stupid.
Crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, but if we did something, the world's going to end tomorrow. Go buy these 10 items. And you told us the 10 items to buy before the world's going to end, you get 1 million views on it.
Or you were in a bikini twerking.
That's not happening. No, Jason, you are not allowed to do that.
Yeah,
it's all on Jason.
I'll do my Speedo and twerk.
No, you won't. You won't. If you do that, that stays on your channel, not my channel.
We'll edit that part out. That'll be the thumbnail.
Like,
on
not my watch.
Oh my gosh. So you all need to go check out KentuckySustainableLiving.com. Right now, you can get tickets for $25 with coupon code email25. That's going to be ending pretty soon. So make sure that you go get your tickets soon. We've got some workshops on the Friday before. We've got a radio workshop. We've got a canning workshop. We've got a suture workshop, suture and wound care. And then we've got, what else do we got? Oh, the herbal class, Leslie's herbal class.
I'm excited for that.
You can check those out. They'll be on Friday. The festival is on Saturday and Sunday. Y'all, we have an amazing lineup of speakers along with Callie that's going to be there. Jason, you want to share some of those?
We've got Angry Prepper. Jason will be down. He's going to talk about bugging out in an urban situation. We've got Flomaton Famous is going to be there doing tree grafting all weekend, showing you how to graft trees. William Bond, the permaculture consultant. William's going to be there. William is actually going to do a hands-on demonstration on how to build a compost pile and how to flip your compost. So he's going to show you how to build your first pile, and then we're going to show you like a week to a 2-week-old pile, what it should look like and how to flip that. And then he's actually going to have some finished compost there so you can put your hands in that compost, see what it's supposed to look like when it's done. Bill Stoker-Matic is going to be there talking about securing your homestead security. I'm looking at my notes. Local Prepper will be there doing Preparedness 101. Chronically Healthy. Callie, you and Chronically Healthy can probably hook up.
And Leslie too. I mean, she needs to hook up with Chronically Healthy. She needs to hook up with Leslie. There's going to be a lot of great people there that you'll want to connect with.
We need to put all of those together and just mash them together and have a Q&A.
Maybe we should do a panel with them.
That's what I was about to say. That could be really, really cool.
That would be good. Brian and Susan will be there. S&B Homestead Radio talking about communications. Like we said, Leslie will be there covering medicinal herbs and stuff like that. We're going to have
we've also got Yardbird that is sending a guy that's going to be doing a chicken processing.
They're going to be doing chicken. We're going to do chickens on Saturday and Sunday. So Yardbird will be there doing chicken processing and showing that. Man, there's tons of stinking vendors. We've got 50 plus vendors are going to be there. Everybody from selling, custom knives to freeze-dried foods to herbal tinctures, handmade stuff from their farms, just all kinds of stuff. If you can't, with our vendors, if you can't find it, if you're in the homesteading and preparedness aspect, if you can't find it there, honestly, you probably don't need it. So,
right.
I mean, I don't know if the tractor dealer will be there, but we're doing what he can with a tractor dealer. But that'd probably be one of the few things that we'd be missing. So, but yeah, go to KentuckySustainableLiving.com, pick that up. Also, one of the big things I'm excited about and that I hope goes super well, and y'all listeners are the ones that are going to make it go super well, is Saturday night. We're doing a charity dinner for Caleb House. Yep. If you don't know what Caleb House is, it's a restoration facility that is 100% privately funded. TJ, Bear Independent, is doing that. That's his mission, that he's building that rehabilitation facility. And we're having a charity dinner for them on Saturday night. Go over and watch. I just did a video with Billy at Permapastures. We talked about it in depth, what they're doing. But you can get your tickets on the website. The tickets are $150. And pretty much most of that money is going to the charity, to actually Caleb House. We got to take a little bit of it and pay for the food and the space for the night, but the bulk majority of that money goes to Caleb House. And that
will give you one more opportunity to sit down with Callie and have dinner and pick her brain about all of the things.
Yeah.
Well, would you like a fire spinner?
Yes.
That would be cool.
My husband will come and do fire performing for you as well.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I just got off with Billy, and I told him, I was like, we got to get on with Callie. He goes, her husband can throw some fire, and I'm like, I looked at, I'm thinking, what? I'm like, is he a dragon? I mean, and then he goes, no, he was out there like juggling fire around. I was like, okay. I was like, you said he was throwing fire. I was like, what? Did he have a bunch of Tabasco or what? I mean, I didn't get it first. But yeah, I mean, bring him out. As long as he doesn't burn the place down, we're good.
Oh, he's very safe. He's very, very, very safe. But yeah, he's a fire spinner. Been doing it for about 10 years now. So he's like Burning Man crew kind of stuff, So he'll bring all his props and he'll woo the audience. He'll give you something to watch as well, which would be quite cool. So yeah, I know he'll like that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But see, then you come to the charity dinner, you donate for a good cause, and you might get caught on fire after dinner.
That's not how we promote this, Jason. That's not how we promote this. They're going to get to watch a fire spinner. They're not going to get caught on fire.
And we're gonna raffle off fire extinguishers before the dinner.
Callie,
everyone has a safety blanket.
We'll make sure we have a fire hose out there.
This went off the rails quick.
Yeah.
Callie's dragon husband will be there blowing fire at people.
Good Lord.
Callie, bless him.
But before we get too far off the rails and hit the river, Callie, we appreciate you being on here tonight. It was a pleasure. I can't wait to meet you in person and sit down and talk to you about all this. And guys, I'll leave a link in the description where you can get a hold of Callie and if you got any questions. But the big thing, it's awesome to talk to somebody, listen to them on YouTube and all this. But honestly, get your butt off the couch and come and meet her in person, meet all the other people. For $25, you're going to get access. I would pay gladly 10 times that to sit down and be able to have a conversation with Callie. And all these other people that are going to be there. There's a huge wealth of knowledge, whether you're into natural medicines and stuff like that, or if you're just a hardcore preparedness person and into bug out bags and freeze-dried food, there'll be stuff for you there. It's going to be a great time. And Callie, I appreciate it a bunch. Shelly, you got anything else?
That's it. It's been great talking to you. You're such an interesting person, and the stuff that you put out there and the way that you empower people is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
All right.
Thank you.
Callie.
I'm so excited to meet you very well. See you again, Shelly, but I'm excited to